This video series is for farmers who are interested in transitioning from conventional farming to organic farming and exploring and learning about the different aspects of organic farming. This will include discussions with organic farmers and their organic system plans, OSP, as every organic farm is different. We take you to Larry Stanislav's longtime organic farm near Linwood, Nebraska, a sunny and very windy June day. We join Larry in his fields as he explains his crops and his farming practices.
We're out here with Larry. He's one of his organic systems is out here on top of the hill. And Larry, if you could tell us a little bit about that, what you're doing this year.
Okay. Welcome to the Stanislav farm. And what I have is a system of strips across the whole farm. And if you look through the camera, you can see that I have 72-foot wide strips that contain 24 rows, and I'm on wide spacing on my planting, other than, when I go to a solid seed situation. So the strips are, there's 3 strips here. That one will be planted to corn, one will be planted to soybeans, and one to a solid seeded small grain. And this year we're looking at oats and a red clover, sweet clover mix. And the way this system works is every year the system just jumps over to the next strip. So what was corn last year, the soybeans jump over it, and the corn jumped over into the green manure strip of the clover, oats, whatever it was the previous year. So my strips just keep rotating over the field. And if you notice, I'm on the contour of the hills here, and what I'm actually trying to accomplish is to minimize the amount of erosion that I get. When I was a young boy, my father farmed this place. So often we would have a whole hillside tilled up in some crop. We'd get heavy rains, and then we would have erosion all the way from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill, and who knows how far beyond that. With this strip system here, I'm able to control the erosion. I can't eliminate it, but I can control it. So if in the picture you can see water has run off of the neighbor, who is also an organic farmer, across his field. And you can see it's done some erosion here, getting some corn stalks from him. But then when it hit the till ground where the corn was planted, you can see there's a fair amount of erosion there. But then that's dirty, silty water then hits my solid seeded crop, and so a lot of my soil is then deposited there, and the water continues on. So I have not eliminated it, but I have minimized it, how much erosion I'm getting on some of these fields here. It takes a little more effort and time to do all this, keeping all the strips, you could say, in line. But I like the system in that we used to have to go and plow in ditches so we could plant and till the soil for the next year. We don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. But anyway, part of the reason for the stripping system too is sometimes when we were doing our rotation, because actually I have a 4 crop rotation. I have corn, soybeans, and alfalfa, and then the green manures. Now the alfalfa is not put into the strips. Usually I take out an area of anywhere from 10 to 20 acres and put that in alfalfa. The strips are eliminated, but eventually it goes back into the strips. It helps me with this rotation. When my father was farming, we'd have 5-acre fields, we'd have 10-acre fields, 20 acres. So sometimes the rotation would be heavy in one crop, real light in another one. So then when it came to marketing, bin stories, those kinds of things, we would run into problems. I've kind of eliminated that by having everything in these strips, where about 1/3 of the farm is corn, 1/3 of the farm is soybeans, and so on. So I can maintain kind of an order, knowing how much I'm going to produce and how much I need to buy for seed and this type of thing. So the stripping system, the way I've got it set up, helps me with that. Also, this system allows me to, let's say I have a weed problem someplace. If this was 70 acres of corn here and I saw a sunflower in the middle of the field, it was hard to always find it. Like with the stripping systems, I can go up and down the strips many times through the year to get to a problem that I might have or something that needs to be attended to. So it's been a nice system that way, but it also does take a little more time. If I was just to till this whole thing up, it would in one day or whatever the time like. But with the stripping system, it takes a little more time. But also, when I do, there is a mind game with this. So when I start over there and then I jump over 3 strips and jump over 3 strips and go there, I get across that field rather quickly in my mind. But in actuality, it probably takes a little more time. But there are so many other benefits to this system.
So let me ask you, what do you have planted here in your oats?
Okay, this year, what I'm working with right now is oats, and then there's a red clover, sweet clover. Now the oats may be harvested off not as grain, probably as haylage for the cattle in the operation. And then the red clover, sweet clover will be left to grow through the balance of the season. And then it'll overwinter, in particular the sweet clover will. And then this is where I'll let it grow to a certain point in the spring. And then I will till the sweet clover in. It's been here putting roots into the system. It's got a taproot that helps work up the soil. Plus it's been fixing nitrogen for me. And then also holding the soil in place. There's something living in the soil all the time. That's one of my goals, to have something living in the soil as long as I can.
So you would plow this down when it gets high in the spring then?
Oh, that would be a little too late.
That'd be a little too late.
I did that a couple of times, and then it was hard to incorporate all that material. And then sometimes I had to work the soil so much, and as you know, many times in the spring it can be pretty dry. You'll dry all that out, and then you'll have an issue with, getting a good stand of corn.
Have you thought about mowing that?
So that's what I'm doing now. I let it get up about so tall, and then I cut it or shred it, whatever I do, and then I will come in here and till it in some fashion.
Are you concerned about letting it dry out, or do you try to get that green stuff under as soon as you can, or is that?
It'll depend on the weather. I would probably do it as
soon as you can.
I probably wouldn't do it right away, but I would do it fairly soon.
Okay.
So it just depends. Like last couple of years, so terribly dry, I didn't get a very good stand. And then when I did work it up, and that much trash and loose soil, and I had a hard time getting my corn planted and established. This year, that wasn't an issue.
Right.
It worked out very well because I got onto it a little bit quicker. Now, I'm a dry land farmer here. If I had irrigation, I would probably do different things. I would work with maybe hairy vetch. I would even do a lot of crimping and no-till planting right into that. But with being a dry land farmer here, I've tried that, and it hasn't always worked. And
so next year, this is going to be corn.
Next year, this will be corn.
Okay.
So this will also, this strip being what it is through the season, I do get manure from the winter feedlots for my partner's cattle. So this will give me a place to spread manure during the season when the soil is dry, and I wouldn't have to worry about compaction as to maybe taking that manure and spreading it in the spring, and the ground might be wet, you make tracks, compact the soil. This gives me an option to spread that manure late in the season.
Okay. What crop was here before?
This was soybeans.
This is soybeans.
Soybeans, yes.
So
my green manures, which are, oats, peas, and these clovers, always go into the soybean ground.
Okay.
And then the soybeans always go into the corn ground. And then the corn goes into the green manure strips.
Okay. So after soybeans, you plant oats the next spring.
The next spring.
So it's
if I could do something in the fall,
good.
I would try. But generally, I harvest later. We're talking like October, maybe even approaching November. I have tried different things, and many times it wasn't successful in getting a stand. So I have found that by doing this in the spring, I usually get something growing that works in this climate or with my soils.
So we're sitting on this piece of ground right here. Looks like we got corn stalks here.
Yes, this is where there was corn here last year. And that's why this is going to go into soybeans.
Okay.
This will go into
This
soybeans.
strip, and then the next strip,
That's
a
already
little lighter. That
right. That was the green manure last year, and that's planted to that. There was red clover there, or sweet clover there. I have tilled that under and planted my corn into that.
which would be what's going to happen to this next
Yes,
year. Right.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So that is one system, and I think you said it is about 75% of your
Right.
system up here, right?
Right.
And we have another system that we're going
We
to
have another system around a yard where we bring cattle in to graze over the winter. So I do something a little different there. I work with peas, oats, peas, and then maybe sometimes radishes, turnips, to give the cattle something great. I don't have the fence over here. I don't have the shelter for the winter. I have all of those in the event situation.
So we are June 6th right now.
Yes.
We're a little bit behind.
Yes. I was hoping to have the soybeans planted by now and be working on weed control. So
Normally you would plant your soybeans, what?
about the last week in May.
Okay.
And the corn would have been planted just prior to that. Usually I would go right from planting corn to planting soybeans.
Right.
Because of the weather conditions, we've had some major rain events here. We had 6.5 inches about 2 weeks ago. And then I did get the corn planted, and then we got another about 3 inches in another rain event. And it's finally drying out now to maybe where I can get in here and start tilling and planting the soybeans. But I also need to be going back and on weed control in the corn shortly too.
So a good example of the stripping system and the erosion control, minimizing the erosion.
Yes,
and it's working.
it's working. It helps.
It helps.
It helps.
So let me go back to the time that this was planted. When did you plant your oats?
This was planted in about the middle of April.
Middle of April.
About I think it was about April 13th is when I tilled this. Now, when we go back and look at the peas and oats on the other portion of the farm, that was actually planted about the middle of March 13th.
Yeah. So get out there as soon as you can, more or less.
Yes. Right. We're on another section of the farm here, and behind us is the strips that are on a contour with a large field there. Now over here, you can see the contour of the ground is different, and I changed the direction of these strips. They're basically running east and west, but they're also taking care of the contour of this little ridge hill over here, whereas behind us, they're on the contour for the large hill behind us. So I adjust the stripping direction according to the lay of the land, because there would be no sense to run these other strips through here, because then I would again be encouraging erosion down the strips. So you have to be flexible in how you do all this to meet the demands of the soil, what's needed to be done to protect it.
We are down at Larry's farm here at another part of his farm. He has a different organic system here. And so let's take a few moments to take a look at that and talk about that.
Okay, when we earlier when we were doing our video, we were on another part of the farm where I have a little different system. I still, I was doing the corn, soybeans, and I was doing oats and clovers. Well, on this portion of the farm is where we bring in some livestock for the winter to let them graze down here. So what I have done on the other portions of the farm doesn't really fit with grazing livestock here. So what I'm working with here is still corn and soybeans, but in the green manure strip, as I call it, I'm working with field peas and oats. And as you can see behind me, we've got a really nice stand of field peas this year because we've had substantial moisture. The last couple of years, not so good. But anyway, this year I have a really nice stand of field peas and then the oats. Now, with this system here, I have a lot more options because I know that animals are going to be coming here for the winter to overwinter here. On this portion of the farm here, because there's going to be livestock grazing here, I've gone to a little different system. I'm working with field peas and oats. I I'm going to have probably about 3 different options here of things I can do. Now, next year I may need seed for doing this again, so I would have the peas and oats seed right here, so I could harvest some of this, so that would give me seed for next year to plant. If we felt like cutting this hay, this would be the second option then, cutting this for hay to feed the cattle through the winter months, we could do that. And then once this is taken off though, then I would look at putting something else into the ground for the cattle to graze. And we might be looking at things like buckwheat, radishes, turnips, those types of things for the animals to eat. Or what I have sometimes done is I've taken this, let it go to maturity. So the field peas and the oats are mature. I take and shred it down. I lightly till it in, and then hopefully we get some rain later in the summer, and then I would get a second growth of the peas and oats, and then that would grow into the fall, and that would be left there for the animals to graze in the wintertime. So I have several more options that I can do with this versus what I was doing on the rest of the farm, where it was just oats and clovers, where the clover is allowed to grow over to the next year to be tilled under as a green manure. This would have livestock on it, so I'll have livestock grazing here. Hopefully they're eating and they're depositing their manure here, so I'm getting fertility that way. Plus these peas are also putting some nitrogen into the soil. So it seems to work well with the grazing of livestock here. Whereas on the rest of the farm, I would have to work more with fences, having no shelter for the animals, and water issues, whereas I have all that available here. So that's why this portion of the farm goes into a system like this.
Funding for this video was provided by the Transition to Organic Partnership Program and produced by Organic Crop Improvement Association, OCIA, Nebraska, chapter members.